Hello, everyone, and welcome to another community conversation on the health crisis in
Share all of personnel.
That's a great
Another
question,
element
and I would
is
direct them to the
thinking outside the box, trying to come up with new ways
And
of
as you
moving.
already mentioned, the city is
Let's try to keep these numbers from doubling.
At over 33%, hope you're watching at home.
First, I want to say thank you for inviting me to the show.
Okay, everyone. Hello. I'm Mayor Eric Papenfoos, and welcome to our community conversation. Sorry to be a couple minutes late in starting. We swapped out a new microphone. Today's topic, important to the folks in Harrisburg, is the start of fall. And as with the start of fall every year, what's on people's mind is leaves, street sweeping, trees, and a whole bunch of host of essential city services. We're joined by a number of people to discuss those issues today, but we are also joined by Jennings Husner, who is the Business Development Associate for Biobot. And Biobot is the company which has been doing the epidemiological testing of the wastewater in Harrisburg for the city and capital region water. He's going to talk a little bit about what that testing means, and we're going to talk about the continued good news that we're seeing in that testing and that we have seen now sustained for a number of weeks. From the city, we have former City Councilman Jeff Baltimore here to talk about leaf collection. He's representing our Public Works Department, and representing our Facilities Department to talk about shade trees and other opportunities for planting trees or trimming trees in your neighborhood. We have Mr. Dave Baker, who's the Director of Facilities for the city. And we also are joined by our friends at Capital Region Water. We have Charlotte Katzenmoyer, Chief Executive Officer for CRW, and Jess Rosenthal, who is the Director of Wastewater Operations. And they can talk a little bit of not only about street sweeping, but about how we're getting the actual samples of our wastewater to Biobot and how that process works and is unfolding. So we've got a great lineup for you today, and as always, I want to begin with a couple general announcements, and today we've got a great general announcement. We've got some breaking news, which is that the Harrisburg Area Transportation Survey voted this morning to fund the improvement of perhaps the most dangerous intersection, well, certainly the most dangerous intersection in all of the city of Harrisburg, and that is the intersection at Front and Forster Street. This comes on the heels of announcing a few weeks ago that PennDOT had agreed to fund the most dangerous boulevard in the city of Harrisburg, which is State Street. Both of those projects are now going to be able to move to construction, and indeed will have construction completed in 2021. And Moman, you were going to bring up a graphic for the project on Forster Street, which if everybody takes a look at, you're going to see there's an opportunity for additional partnership potentially with Capital Region Water, but certainly additional green space in the bump outs. There's a reduction of not only one of the slip lanes on the southern portion there, but also a reduction of the amount of distance in which pedestrians have to go when actually crossing the street. The improvements will take place all the way from that very dangerous intersection at Front and Forster up to 2nd Street, where next year, of course, we're going to see the new conversion to 2nd Street two-way, and you can see that two-way indicated on the map. So it's very exciting. That's about $1 million project, and that is going to be funded with federal transportation dollars. And again, we want to thank all of our partners in the region for voting to fund that project. This is a new grant for Harrisburg, and one that we're really excited to receive. So you can look for this project to be begun and completed next year, as well, and almost simultaneously, we think, as the State Street Improvement Project, which also has a variety of improvements, including bike lanes, and viewers of this show know that because we've discussed it before. So there's going to be a lot of Harrisburg under construction for sure next year in 2021. This also ties to the topic that we got the most calls and the most emails and the most chatter about on Facebook over the past week. And that has to do with the changing out of some of the traffic signals and the way they're working on Forster Street. There is now a system in place which makes it more difficult to see lights further down the street when, for instance, you're driving over the Harvey Taylor Bridge. You can only see the signal in front of you and maybe the signal after that, but you can't see all of the signals going all the way down the street. This was something that was contributing to some of the traffic accidents as people were trying to either anticipate light cycles or, beat the lights or even getting confused as to which light was which. This is some of the empirical data that we've received when sort of analyzing some of the crashes that have been there. So they have put what's called a sort of telescopic lens on top of these signals, which also makes it harder to see the signals from the side streets. So you can't anticipate what the light cycle is from the side street, so you're not sort of cheating and moving out into traffic and trying to turn with the lights. All of this combined is designed to slow speeds. And we want to try and slow speeds along this section of Forster Street. If you're going the speed limit, you'll have no trouble sort of following the light cycles. But if you're going too fast, it can be a real change in sort of patterns. We got a lot of feedback about this. I wanted to reassure the public that this is a thoughtful approach. It's being done in partnership with PennDOT. They've already made some tweaks to the angles of some of the lights, but check it out. If you have an opportunity, drive through safely, and you'll see that both the signal timing, the brightness, the angles have all changed along Forster Street, and it's all designed to slow speeds and make it easier for everyone to share the road and share the road safely. So that was our big announcement this morning. We also have another announcement, which is appropriate for fall, but the CDC recently released its sort of guidelines regarding trick-or-treat and have recommended against traditional trick-or-treat nights. So the city of Harrisburg will not be having an official trick-or-treat night this year on the Thursday before Halloween. We don't think it can be necessarily done safely, but we are going to have an alternative, and that is at each of our 3 fire stations throughout the city, in the 2 in Allison Hill and the 1 in Uptown. We will be having a sort of socially distant grab-and-go candy giveaway for kids and others between the hours of 5 and 7 on that Thursday before Halloween. So there'll still be an opportunity to come out and get some candy safely. It's not going to be, they will be individually prepared bags. It'll be done efficiently and quickly. But this is a partnership between the Harrisburg City and Harrisburg City Council and the Harrisburg Fire Department, which is going to help make this happen. We also may be partnering with some other locations and some other organizations to expand it beyond the 3 fire stations, but we'll have more information on that to come. But we will not be having a traditional trick-or-treat in Harrisburg this year. Like many things, we're adapting and we're changing, and we want to try and keep everybody safe. In terms of important announcements, remember, and we've been saying this week after week, it is absolutely essential that everyone be counted and stand up and fill out their census forms. We're down to the home stretch. We are below our rate of response from 10 years ago in the city, and with COVID, despite the fact that there were actually census workers out this past week trying to count the homeless population in the city. They were out overnight. Our numbers are below where they should be, and we need a final push here from everyone to encourage folks to be counted. So remember, it's very simple. You can fill out the census online. It's www.2020census.gov. That's one option, or you can call. And if you call, they have people ready to help you in a myriad of different languages. That phone number again is 1-844-330-2020. Let's all stand up and be counted. The statistic I heard this week is that for every person who is undercounted, the city and the organizations within it will lose about $20,000 in associated funding from all the various sources. It is absolutely essential that we all stand up and be counted. Tonight, we have a special encore presentation of Black Panther at the Bandshell in Reservoir Park. We announced this last week, but the first time we showed this, it was so successful, we're bringing it back. And we've extended the movie night in the park to early October as well. The weather seems to be cooperating with us. So we have Moana coming up on 10/2 and Zootopia coming up on 10/9. These movies begin at 7 o'clock. It's already dark by 7. There's going to be a little bit of outdoor entertainment. We encourage people to spread out, bring a mask, but enjoy a movie out in the park while the weather is still nice. Tomorrow, which is Saturday the 26th, from 8 a.m. to noon, is the Great Harrisburg Litter Cleanup. Sort of timing changed this year with COVID, but all the resources that we've had, as in past years, are there. Our Harrisburg Public Works Department is going to be at all the various sites, making sure that the dumpsters and the hundreds of tons and thousands of pounds of trash that are collected are all delivered to Laxwama and the incinerator on time. We want to thank Tri-County Community Action and Laxwama and everybody for coming together and doing this. It's always a successful event. And again, that's going to be tomorrow. You can find out more by simply Googling Great Harrisburg Litter Cleanup or going to the cactricounty.org website. The dumpster locations are pretty much the same as last year. So I hope people will come out and be supportive. Then, if you'd like, after the cleanup, and you've built up an appetite, Saturday is the final Saturday night in the city for outdoor dining on 2nd Street. We'll be shutting down the streets for one last time, weather permitting, and people should come on out and enjoy dining. It's also takeout month. September is takeout month for our restaurants, so if you can't go out and dine under the stars in person, at least consider taking something out. We want to try and support our restaurants as best we can. They continue to be hurting during this time, and that is a great way to participate. Then on Monday, this coming Monday, an important joint announcement. We have a town hall planned at 5:30. And you can find information about this town hall with Harrisburg University at the harrisburgpa.gov website. Just do harrisburgpa.gov/HU Town Hall. And that is at 5:30 this Monday, and you can find out about the new Harrisburg University project. It has changed a lot since it was originally proposed. There's no hotel. It's a little bit lower, but it's very exciting, the types of classroom spaces and activities which they're planning for the new HU building. You can not only learn about what they're proposing, but if you are interested in bidding on some of the work or finding out more about how you can be involved in that workforce, you can make those connections. So the city is partnering with HU to try and spread word about this project, and it hasn't begun yet, so there's still an opportunity for everyone to get involved, even though the project has changed a bit from how it was originally proposed. That's 5:30 on Monday. So before we get on with the show, let me also say that a lot of the topics that we're discussing today, from the leaf collection to the street sweeping to the shade tree program, all of this is going to be reinforced with a mailer that you're going to see in your trash bills that are going to be coming to you this month. So if you can look for that, and we'll begin the conversation sort of right here and right now. So let's start, Charlotte, with you. This is Charlotte Katzenmoyer, Chief Executive Officer at CRW. And before we talk about our exciting partnership with Biobot, Charlotte, I wanted to talk a little bit about street sweeping, because we've made some changes in how street sweeping is being delivered here in the city. I think residents have seen the new street sweepers and are pretty excited. So CRW has basically taken over and is self-performing the street sweeping, and I wanted to get your perspective on how it's going so far.
Thank you for having me. Yes, we're in our second month of self-performing street sweeping. As you may know, DBI Services was performing street sweeping for us in the past. We had some difficulty coming back from COVID with their business model. They were having financial difficulties, so street sweeping wasn't going well. We weren't anticipating starting street sweeping this early, but we had the equipment already ordered. We were able to speed up the hiring process and we're in our second month of self-performing street sweeping. So we think it's going very well. We've actually increased the amount of litter that is being picked up by our street sweepers. So we think it's much more effective than having a contractor to do this service for the city.
Great. And what's your message to the public that you'd like to convey in terms of the way residents can assist in the street sweeping or find out information if they have questions about street sweeping?
So I'd recommend that residents can help us. We have a follow truck that is, which has not been used in the past by DBI, but we have a follow truck that's trying to get all the litter and debris. Oftentimes leaves get compacted on top of catch basins or storm inlets. That follow truck is ensuring that debris is moved off of the catch basins into the line, into the street for the street sweepers to pick up. But if in between those street sweeping times in your neighborhood, if you rake off that debris and pick it up as you're doing other leaf collection, that would really help. Oftentimes during the fall season, we get heavy downpours, and it helps to get that rain to the storm inlets appropriately so that we don't create localized flooding. So in between street sweeping, when we're not out there, it would really help for your neighborhood just in terms of improving localized flooding to get that debris off of the catch basins.
Okay, and if a resident notices that perhaps a street sweeper doesn't come when it's advertised to come, what's the best way for them to report that to CRW?
So I'd suggest that they call our customer service number at 1-888-510-0606. Our customer service representatives will be able to speak with Jess Rosenthal or Michael Joseph, our street sweeper supervisor, to get information about, what's going on, with any missed street sweeping that we may be occurring, or, if there's a change in schedule.
And would you like to talk a little bit about the street sweepers themselves, the equipment that we've seen? How were they obtained, and how do they work?
So I might ask Jess to take over for me. We've purchased Elgin street sweepers. I've had good success with these street sweepers in the past. In my previous position, I had street sweeping under me. So when I came on at Capital Region Water, I quickly realized that we could do a better job if we self-performed. So I used that information from my previous experience with Elgins. They work very well in an urban environment where you have cars often parked where you have to go around them with tight radiuses. So that's one, the Elgin sweeper is the one that we looked at, and I can attest that it's working very well. Jess may want to add anything to that.
I would just add that the sweepers, as opposed to vacuum sweepers that we were using in the past with TBI, so while they don't might not get as much very fine sediment up, they are much better at getting larger debris up off of the street. Very important that it does have the maneuverability. It has a single rear wheel, which allows it to maneuver in very tight spaces, tight streets, as we know there are throughout the city of Harrisburg, small alleys. If there are cars parked in streets and we're begging people to move those cars, it makes our job much, much easier. But that single rear steering tire gives us that flexibility to swoop in and out of spaces and really, really get close to tight corners. As Charlotte mentioned, we're picking up almost double the amount of debris as we did with our previous contractor, which speaks for itself in the effectiveness. So,
yeah, that's great. And where does the debris go?
The debris actually comes down here. We stage it here in what we have is a dewatering area in case there's anything that ends up, leaching out of it. It gets returned to the process before, and it's stored here for a period of time before it's taken for disposal.
Great. Thanks for that explanation. And then how long into the fall should folks expect to see street sweeping continuing? Is there a date at which it will stop?
Charlotte, you want to? I can.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So we plan on street sweeping year round. As many people know, litter doesn't stop just because of the seasons. So we are continuing since we have our own staff and they're working for us year round, we're going to continue street sweeping as much as we can. If there is inclement weather with a lot of snow debris, a lot of snow piles along the curb line, we may suspend street sweeping for a period of time, and we'll try to notify residents when that occurs. But we plan on street sweeping year round.
Okay, great. So the technology then is not reliant on temperatures being above a certain degree. I think the old street sweepers, which utilized water, would freeze up at a certain time. So this is different.
These sweepers still use water for the street sweeping process, but since they're not the vacuum sweepers, they're not as susceptible to freezing up as mechanical sweepers are, as the vacuum sweepers.
Great. No, that's terrific. That's wonderful. So people can look forward to that. And just from the city standpoint, to let you all know, we City Council recently approved, although there was a lot of public comment and a lot of discussion, funding of a new parking enforcement officer specifically to assist with ticketing around street sweeping in certain parts of the city. It's sort of a double-edged sword. Nobody wants more parking enforcement, but then again, the street sweepers can't work if people don't move their cars. Hopefully, once people understand and realize that that this is occurring again, there'll be more compliance. But we did fund another position. But maybe as a final question, Charlotte, you could just talk about. So why is it important? I understand from a quality of life issue why it's important to get have the streets looking nice. But why when somebody's frustrated and getting out early in the morning to move their car, what would you say to them about why it's important to make sure that our street sweepers can get through?
Well, in addition to making the city more beautiful by not having litter and debris all over the place, it helps us to keep our local waterways clean, which is important to everybody. Local waterways, that debris will end up in our local waterways if it's not removed from the streets. So it's important for us, just from an ecological standpoint, to do our part to keep the environment clean. I'll also add that the debris that ends up on the streets from potholes, just the fine stones that end up coming up from potholes, will actually continue to get pounded into the street as traffic continues to go along the street. So removing that debris will actually help improve the longevity of the street surface. So not only is it a litter issue, but it is also other debris and pollution. There's lots of motor oil that ends up, other debris, other pollution that ends up on the streets that those street sweepers are picking up that will prevent the local waterways from being polluted.
Thanks for that message. And going back to you, Jess, we're going to speak to Biobot here in a moment. And we've been talking a lot about wastewater and wastewater testing. But when people hear about water and coronavirus, I don't want them to get the wrong impression. So I wanted you just to address this issue of, is our water supply safe during the coronavirus pandemic? And maybe you can speak to that to start.
Sure. Absolutely. Our water is 100% safe to drink. Capital Region Water has for quite some time continued to operate above and beyond EPA standards. And obviously we continued to do so throughout the pandemic. So now there's no risk of contracting coronavirus from our drinking water that we're serving the city of Harrisburg. And generally, the Center for Disease Control, World Health Organization, they're not detecting COVID-19 in any public drinking water supplies. So certainly want to make sure people are confident of that.
Great. Yes. Safe and tasty as always. Some of the best water anywhere. Flip side of it is, however, that in the wastewater, you can people do shed the virus into the wastewater, and this forms the basis of this fascinating testing that we're going to be talking to Biobot about here in a minute. But what is Capital Region Water's role in collecting these samples? How does it work, and how do you keep your own employees safe from the virus while doing that job?
Sure. Just a brief overview. Capital Region Water operates one of the largest wastewater treatment facility systems in the state. It's the biggest facility in the Chesapeake watershed in Pennsylvania. We treat an average of about 22 million gallons of water per day. Our service territory includes all of Harrisburg and several parts of the outlying municipalities over here on the East Shore. So we're in a perfect position to get a representative sample from such a large population. Anything that is discharged from any of the businesses or residents within our service territory, that 125,000 population, eventually makes its way down to our treatment facility. And as part of our regulatory requirements through EPA and Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, we're required to perform influent sampling of everything that comes into this facility. And we do that through a automatic composite sampler. And that sounds like it's complicated, but it's really not. It's a machine that takes small sips of the incoming flow every 20 minutes, and it stores it in a refrigerated compartment. And we are required by our permits to run a battery of tests on that on a daily basis, some daily, some weekly, some monthly. So 365 days a year, we are always continually running that automatic composite sampler. So our role in the Biobot testing is very, very simple. We're already performing this work to meet our permit requirements. When we became aware of the Biobot testing, I was very eager to partake in the initial phase of the study, and it really is very, very little work for us. We're already collecting that sample, and we're distributing it into a series of different bottles for various testing. This is one more bottle that we have to fill, package it up, and ship it off to Biobot. We use the exact same protective measures that we do when we're doing any type of wastewater sampling, where we wear we can wear a face shield, goggles, obviously rubber gloves to make sure that we're not touching any of the wastewater by hand, and there's no splashing on us. But it really is extraordinarily simple for us to participate in something, because we're doing the same thing for other reasons.
Yeah, that's great. A great segue into Biobot. So we know how the samples are being pulled, and then I should also mention to viewers, I think they know this, but this is done more or less weekly, correct? And it is the cost of the testing is shared equally between Capital Region Water and the city. Take us through the rest, though, of the wastewater process. So that's the testing, and sometimes there is a fairly high prevalence rate, or there has been historically at different times during this pandemic. So how does the wastewater process itself end up, killing the virus?
Okay, so there's a lot that goes on with wastewater treatment. There's some very simple physical treatment where it's being screened. It's allowed to a gravity separation process where we're slowing it down in large tanks, and solid particles fall to the bottom of that. Eventually, it's biologically treated to remove any type of dissolved or floating solids within the water, and that helps clarify it at the end of the process. But ultimately, at the very end, before discharging to the river, we disinfect it with chlorine, which has been proven as an effective disinfectant to all pathogens. So we add an adequate dose of that. That is checked continuously before discharge to the river. So that's the way that virus is taken care of before being discharged back to the Susquehanna.
Great. Well, thank you for that important work that you're doing. And I think we're ready to go to Jennings. Jennings Husner, Business Development Associate for Biobot. So on a weekly basis, Jennings, you get these samples not just from Capital Region Water, but presumably from water companies and wastewater plants all over the country. What is Biobot, and how does it work from there?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for inviting us here to talk about this important work. We really appreciate the partnership with Charlotte and Jess and the rest of the folks at Capital Region Water. It's been a seamless process when working with them, so it's very nice to see. So Biobot is, at its core, a wastewater-based epidemiology company. What we do is we look for presence of diseases in the wastewater, other biomarkers as well, but really looking to see what we can find out about public health through the water that we're flushing down the toilet. The company was started in 2017, and we initially focused on the opioid epidemic, helping individual municipalities across the country figure out how to better allocate public health resources to fight opioid overdose deaths within their community. But come February of this year, we saw a more pressing need for our product in COVID-19, and so pivoted to helping individual municipalities across the country look for that within their wastewater. We started with a pilot with the city of Boston, which then grew into 400 different municipalities across 42 states. So you're right, we are receiving samples from across the country. And so we're really just helping these individual cities, towns, counties make better public health decisions with better information. That's what we're really built to do.
Yeah, that's great, and we'll get into what the testing sort of says or shows for the Harrisburg region. But can you talk a little bit about how the testing works? We don't have to get too much into the weeds of the science, but I know people are familiar with going to Rite Aid and say getting a nasal swab testing, or maybe even familiar with the concept of antibody testing. What is the testing that Biobot does exactly?
Sure. So our testing is actually very similar to the tests that are done on the nasal swab tests that have become so prevalent across the country. We're looking for the same RNA signatures within our test that they're looking for within theirs. We just happen to be looking at it through fecal matter instead of saliva and sputum. So the way it works is we receive the samples that Jess and Co. provide us at our lab in Cambridge. We reduce that to a smaller sample, and then through the magic of lab analysis that is frankly over my head, we're able to tell how much of the virus is in that sample. And in terms of copies of viral RNA, that's really the number that we're looking for to be able to tell you how much infection you can expect to see within your community.
And this may be a basic question, but is that wastewater, are those samples dangerous to handle? Do you have to, how easily is the virus spread through wastewater?
Sure. So short answer is that they're not dangerous at all. The CDC has concluded that there is very little to no risk of transmitting the virus through wastewater samples like these. We do take the necessary precautions, like Jess's team does, to ensure that that very little turns into no chance of transmitting the virus. But when they reach our lab, we undertake a lot of different safety protocols to make sure that our lab team is safe.
Great. Now, when you first started testing, when we first signed up, we were, a part of that initial pilot. It was taking quite some time to get those test results back, and I imagine that was partly because of the fact that it was all new and there was an incredible demand. Now we're getting them back very rapidly, and the less lag time between the actual samples going to you and getting the test results back is going to be very helpful in terms of tracking changes to the virus. But do you want to address that?
So you're right. We did have a little hiccup in our reporting process when you guys started, and we're very appreciative that you stuck with us through that. We're proud of the progress that we've made as a company. As you said, right now our reporting turnaround time from the time we receive the sample in our lab is under 3 days. And that's important because of the predictive nature of this kind of testing. We have published a couple of papers, most recently one about a month ago, that details how our approach actually gives you a little bit of a window into what is to come. When we see a spike in the viral titers in the wastewater, we normally see a corresponding spike in the number of clinically reported cases, that is, people testing positive at the doctor, at the hospital, et cetera, somewhere around a week later. So the fact that we're able to now turn around these samples in under 3 days from the time we receive them gives you an opportunity to really use that data in a public health sense to make decisions to keep the people in the greater Harrisburg area safe.
That's right. And, there's lots of talk about a potential new wave coming in the fall. And I know we're all, anxiously looking at that data to see if we can see signs of that recurrence. Of course, that hasn't happened yet. And the data for Harrisburg is, I think, very encouraging. So if we could talk about that just for a moment. You do a couple things when you send us these reports. One thing is you put it in context with a lot of the other samples that you've collected nationwide, and I find those graphs very interesting. You call it the sort of normalized virus concentration in comparison graph, and that graph shows that Harrisburg, on the scale of all the testing sites throughout the country, is really happily down near the bottom in terms of prevalence rate. Can you talk about Harrisburg in context, what the current results are in context with others?
Sure. So you're absolutely right. You thankfully have been on the lower end of the samples that we've been testing over the past few months. I was actually just going over your historical data, and it seems as if you had the highest prevalence within your community in late May and early June. And then, thankfully it's declined pretty consistently and has leveled off at these very low numbers over the past few weeks and months. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
Yeah. No, I think it does mean that in Pennsylvania and in Harrisburg, we have taken social distancing seriously, and we've had really strong leadership, I think, on the state level with this regard, and it has brought the numbers down. So not only do we get that comparison number on a weekly basis, but you also give us a sort of a standard graph, which sort of shows where we were a normalized virus concentration over time. And it does show exactly what you're saying, which is that back in May and in June, we had a very, very high concentration rate. But ever since about mid-July, it has sort of tailed off and steadied off into what I would say is a consistent pattern of without any resurgence or recurrence of the virus. Now, you predict something even more dramatic. You get down to the nitty gritty and you talk about cases per day. So the current projection for the Harrisburg area is 10 cases per day. How do you do that? That seems very, very specific.
Yeah, and so this is something that is kind of born out of our academic approach. The company was born out of doctoral research that our two founders were doing at MIT specifically on this subject, and we've taken this academic approach to our work, ever since, really. And so this this figure, this kind of 10 new cases per day figure, is something that we are able to present through a model that we've developed internally. Basically, what it does is it takes the numbers that Jeff has supplied us, on flow rate, on population served, a couple of other things like that. We put those into the model, but the most important figure here is both the viral concentration rate that we give you every week, and then a figure that we've put together that we think represents the average amount of virus that a newly infected person would be shedding on a given day. And so we put kind of all of those into a big pot, and out comes this number that we feel good about reporting, in that it will be a representative of the number of newly infected people we believe are represented by the sample that you provided us. Now, I will say that this figure is certainly not exact, but we do feel like it gives you an idea of the actual presence of newly infected people within your community.
Yes, it does. And we should say that, 10 cases per day is very, very low incidence rate. That is, less than 1% for sure. And it is a small amount. And it was much higher at times in Harrisburg. But I think one of the interesting things which your data has consistently shown, however, is since it is not reliant on actual testing of people walking into hospitals or clinics or Rite Aid and getting testing, it really does measure what we might call asymptomatic carriers, people that maybe have the virus but don't know it or haven't been tested. And historically, it consistently showed that the number of people that were carrying the virus was higher than the number that was being reported by testing. Can you talk to that a little bit?
You're exactly right. So one of the benefits of our wastewater testing, in addition to the predictive aspect, is the fact that we are a truly comprehensive test. We think that everybody will use the bathroom once a day, and so ideally they'll be captured within the sample that we are testing. And so that allows us to capture not only the pre-symptomatic people, those people who are recently infected and might soon become symptomatic, but like you said, the asymptomatic people who can still spread the virus throughout the community, but are never going to seek a test because they don't feel sick. So it's those two kind of things combined that we feel make our testing, a real home run for a public health department in any municipality, but especially in the urban settings where, contact between people is likely to be higher than it would be in rural areas.
Okay, well, thank you, Jennings, and thanks for that explanation. Again, we found the testing very helpful. We're going to continue to monitor it and watch it as we move into the fall. And if you can stick around, we may have some questions for you. I do want to talk a little bit, though, about trees and leaves, because they are the genesis of the leaves which make it on the street and require the street sweeping. And there also requires a lot of coordination between public works. Before we talk about leaves, though, let's talk about trees. And Dave Baker, you're on the line because, in part because City Council recently, at the same time they approved a new parking enforcement officer to assist with street sweeping, approved a lot of money for tree removal and tree trimming in the city, more than we've done at any one time. And I know you've got some big plans for what you'd like to see and how you'd like to spend that money between now and the end of the year. So what can people expect regarding trees in Harrisburg?
First, I want to say thank you for having me, Mr. Mayor. In regards to the newly acquired funding that City Council has approved, we are hoping to do a low-income based tree removal with some additional tree trimming added to it. We'd like to send out informational pamphlets or flyers to individuals with trees that the city has deemed as being dangerous or dead trees, or trees that need pruned because they're dangerous or dead or overgrown in certain areas. If those individuals would like to send us back the flyers and they do meet the criteria that we're putting forward, which we are currently developing right now, we'll move forward as a city and do a first come first serve basis program where the city will actually remove or trim the trees free of charge to the homeowner.
So for years, we've had a senior tree program in Harrisburg, and that's something that we fund through the host fee generated by the Harrisburg incinerator. What you're talking about is adding a sort of income-tested tree removal program that will also be free of charge to residents who qualify, and will help us deal with a rash of sort of dead, dying trees in the city that need to be removed. That's exciting. Because talk a little bit about shade trees and who's responsible for those shade trees normally. If a program like this weren't in place, it would be probably an enormous burden on a lot of homeowners.
So that's what we're seeing in the parks maintenance department here is that we have many homeowners within the city that financially cannot afford to remove these trees after they become dangerous to themselves and everyone else around the trees. A street tree or a shade tree is a tree within the vicinity of a city right-of-way, which might be an alley or the city street and the sidewalk. Those trees are the sole responsibility of the homeowner to maintain in all ways. The beauty of this program is that unlike the senior tree program, which is again a first come first serve annual program the city offers to anyone over the age of 65, the program that we are trying to put forward right now is not based off of age, but it is based off solely your income levels. So if you cannot afford to take care of these trees, the city will do its best to take care of these trees for you, since obviously anyone who's ever removed a tree knows that depending on the tree it can be very, very costly to do so.
Yeah, and I think also as part of the program, we're looking at doing some trimming in certain corridors of the city. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that. I know that oftentimes if we can trim back trees, we can improve lighting. Better lighting may improve public safety. It's important to do. There's a lot of corridors in the city where we probably need to do this, but what are some of the areas that you're thinking?
So as of now, we're on the home stretch, but we are still developing exactly where we will be focusing on. We've been driving different corridors throughout the city to kind of scope out where the worst hit areas are for this. We're trying to space out the tree trimming as evenly as possible throughout the city, so we can do large areas all at once, but not just focus on one particular part of the city. So one thing I can tell you for sure is that it will be spread out. We will primarily focus on the removal of dead or dangerous trees, but as you did note, the tree trimming is also very important to get done, just to try and increase our lighting amount and visibility of things, just all different types of traffic signals, stop signs, and things such as that nature.
And from a public information standpoint, we're looking to spend this money between now and the end of the year, and we reallocated this money from money that was previously allocated to parks maintenance, but was never spent, in part because of COVID-19 and the curtailing of other activities that took place in the year, whether it was not opening the pools or not spending as much on other aspects of our park system. So this is an opportunity to reprogram that money and to put it into something that people really want to see. I don't want to be entirely negative, though, towards trees. Shade trees have enormous benefits for the community, and I'd like to end on a positive note here, Dave. They don't just drop leaves and promote clog storm drains and promote hazards. They're important to our quality of life. What would you say are the real benefits of shade trees?
So that is absolutely true. Shade trees have been proven without a doubt to increase property value. They clean the air. They they can actually lighten your mood. They have a calming effect when it comes to traffic. There are countless positive attributes that trees can do. I mean, they can lower your heating bills in the summer if they're placed in the proper location. They really, really are a benefit. And I think that long term, the Parks Maintenance Department, they will, as long as people are following our protocol. We ask that you, if you'd like to plant a tree, that you come to the city website, and there's a form you can fill out to apply for a permit to plant a tree. It's $5. We will send out our city forester. She is a certified arborist. She will make sure the location that you are trying to plant in is the appropriate one for a tree. And then we will also give you an option of appropriate trees to plant in the city area. So you don't have to worry about a tree that becomes 150 feet tall and tears up the sidewalk. We're trying to think long term here on how to benefit the citizens of the city, and also give them the best possible tree and the best experience with the trees that we certainly can.
Yeah, that's a great service that we offer. I mean, we can advise on types of trees. We can pay visits and help with location. It's a great thing to have a certified arborist on staff. Final question to you, Dave. If there are people watching this, are there volunteer opportunities for folks related to trees?
Absolutely are. We actually are in the midst of working with the Covenant Community Corporation. They had a grant that they are allowing us to use to do a tree planting in the Camp Curtin area. We were successful. We got 37 responses back from homeowners or people who got permission from the homeowner to plant trees within the Camp Curtin area. We have planted trees even with COVID. We've actually had very special socially distanced volunteer groups come out with the city and do some planting in separate areas. And then we actually picked up a trailer. I picked it up yesterday, a covered utility trailer that we will be using specifically just for volunteer events throughout the city in regards to all different green spaces and tree planting. So we definitely have a lot of things going on. The Camp Curtin tree planting will be in the fall. And if anyone is interested in any sort of tree planting or volunteer work in regards to green spaces of the city, they can certainly go on the city website and contact us that way. That is www.harrisburgpa.gov/trees, or they can call the Parks Facilities and Maintenance Administrative Assistant. Her phone number is area code 717-255-3003. Both of those ways will give the public the most up-to-date information on any sort of volunteer events that we are taking place in, throughout the city.
Okay, thanks, Dave, for those updates, and we'll keep people informed. If you keep watching Facebook Live, we'll let you know when the rollout begins for the low-income tree removal program, as well as some of the corridors and avenues and volunteer opportunities. So thank you, Dave, for joining us. And we're going to conclude here with Jeff Baltimore from the Public Works Department to talk a little bit about leaves. And Jeff, we know it's the fall because when you start going out on walks or hikes, you can hear that crunch underneath your feet. The leaves are starting to come down. So let's talk about what residents should expect in terms of leaf collection and pickup here in Harrisburg.
Well, we've started leaf collection, started September 1st. We'll run through December 1st. We'll collect them in biodegradable bags in the fronts of people's homes. And when the leaves start falling more heavily, we'll send our vacuum trucks out and we'll collect at the street, not the curb. And we work very closely with Charlotte and her crew and Mike Joseph and her street sweeping crew. When our street sweepers are out, we go before and the sweepers come after. So it's pretty coordinated. And I think we do a good job. They've been doing a great job so far with the street sweeping. So, yeah, we're ready. We're geared up.
That's great. Yeah, it does require coordination because we're asking people to put their leaves out on street sweeping nights where they would normally be street sweeping, and you're getting them before the street sweepers. Are there bags available for
Yes.
residents?
At the Public Works Department from 8:30 to 2 o'clock, people can come pick up bags. I think there's 5 to a bag. You're allowed to have, I think, 5 packs per year, and they're biodegradable. And they're free.
That's great. That's a nice service that we offer, and people can get their own bags. They aren't too expensive, or they can stop by Public Works and grab them, and use that and put them out on street sweeping nights. Now I know what happens to the leaves, so but in case the public doesn't know what happens to the leaves, can you tell them?
Well, we pick up those bags of leaves with a 1-ton truck on the street sweeping day, and like you said, we ask residents to put their bags out the night before because it corresponds to the street sweeping times and dates. So between 8 to 12, that's our morning area, and if we go through that area at 8 o'clock, and we don't go back again at 12. So we encourage people to put it out the night before. We pick them up in the 1-ton truck, and then we take them to Wastewater Township, who we are sharing at that facility with several municipalities right now.
Right, that's the composting facility that they have where we're taking our leaves. We have a short-term arrangement. It's been renewing here pretty regularly, and they've been great partners with us. But we take a lot. I think we're the largest contributing municipality to that composting facility, and it's one of the reasons that we're looking to still develop our own composting facility is because there is such a volume and such a need, and there's these leaves can be turned into a viable product, which can then go back into our parks and playgrounds as usable compost. So, any other bits of advice for the public regarding?
Just a couple.
Please? Yeah.
Do's and don'ts. We have a yard waste notice that we issue to people who improperly package leaves or debris. A number of things can get that green tag. If the bag is too heavy, it's full of dirt. If it's full of rocks, that's not what we're trying to do. Don't do that. Yeah. We can't really recycle that. If you have branches out, we have them ask the residents to cut them in 4-foot lengths, 2 inches in diameter, and tie them. We ask that you not mix trash with your yard waste, obviously, because it's biodegradable trash. It's not. So we ask that the residents participate and cooperate with our ability to put this, and keep everything just biodegradable. So I'm sorry for.
No, absolutely. Well, that's one of the reasons we're trying not to mix yard waste with trash. It's a different crew. It's going to a different location. We're not incinerating the compost or the leaves or the yard waste, and we need people to keep it separate. Just like you separate your recyclables from your trash. So all good advice. Do you want to address the issue of storm drains and how we're keeping those clean?
Yes, we do send our crews out to periodically rake the storm drains, but Charlotte's crew goes over those storm drains too. But we also have our leaf vacs, and we vacuum them out when it gets heavily.
Good. When will people start to see the leaf vacs?
The leaf vacs are kind of, we let that be dictated by the fall of the leaves. As Charlotte said, behind a heavy rain, a lot more leaves fall. The more we see an accumulation in the curb, that's when we'll be out. Right now, it's a light fall, and we encourage people to bag them and put them out in front of their homes. When it gets a little heavier, we encourage people to blow them to the curb, to the street, and we'll be by with our vac trucks and try to precede the street sweepers.
Okay, well, there you have it. Thanks, Jeff. And just by way of conclusion, a big thank you to all the workers at Capital Region Water. This past week, we also approved a series of bonuses internally for city workers, for frontline workers, for our parks maintenance team, for our public works staff. But a big thank you to Capital Region Water as well. People have been working continuously, day in and day out, without any change in their schedules throughout this entire pandemic. And without those frontline workers our services would not be able to have continued in the way that they have, which has been pretty seamless and pretty uninterrupted. So thanks to all of you for all the constant work that you're doing. And Momin, do we have some questions?
Yes, I believe we have time for about
Okay.
one or two questions, I think.
We're a little over.
First question will be for Charlotte, and then the next question is for Jennings. Charlotte, you mentioned about notifying residents when the street sweeping would be canceled. Can you describe how residents are notified? Is there an app, or how do people find out about that?
So we use a program called Everbridge. It's an emergency alert notification system that we will be calling residents when we know that we will be canceling street sweeping. There is a location on our website where you can go on our website and find where you can sign up for these alerts. We also will have notifications on our website and other social media, Facebook, Twitter, that we use regularly. We'll add notifications there when there are changes in the street sweeping schedule.
All right, and that's capitalregionwater.com?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And Momin, from the city standpoint, we do have an app. It's called Recycle Coach. We encourage people to download that app. It will tell people schedules and answer all sorts of questions.
Great, thank you. Next question is for Jennings. You mentioned that you're also in other municipalities throughout the country. Can you give us some idea of where else nationwide are you gathering data from?
Sure. So I'll give you a little bit of a high level look. Like I said, we're in 42 different states. One of our most prominent customers has been so far New Castle County in Delaware. They've been a fantastic partner for us in kind of looking through more of our data and helping us understand what can be done with the data. The city of Boston and Cambridge here in Massachusetts have been great partners for us as well throughout the existence of our company. But we have customers in Florida, in Texas, in California, in Michigan, in New York, Pennsylvania, obviously, New Jersey. So basically anywhere that you can think of with a major metropolitan area will have some sort of presence within the state.
Great. And I think we have time for maybe one more question for Jess, perhaps. As far as the relationship coordination with Biobot, how long would that go for? Is that throughout just the pandemic or beyond? Is there a date for that?
A lot of that depends on our funding sources. Capital Region Water, part of our mission is for the protection of public health, but typically we do that with the responsible discharge, reclamation of water and discharge of clean water back to the environment and back to the Susquehanna River. So we are actively looking for funding partners, some public health agencies that might be able to help us share in these costs that are a little bit out of our scope, and greatly appreciate the cooperation and the partnership we have with the city of Harrisburg. Personally, I feel like there's enormous value in this, even beyond the current pandemic. I know that there's a bill that was introduced into the state legislature yesterday to enable statewide wastewater surveillance in a public health emergency. Even looking past COVID, if we had a network like this set up ahead of time, and as soon as we get that genetic code and can start analyzing from an existing surveillance network, we would really be able to start detecting outbreaks much sooner, have more targeted shutdowns in different parts of the state or the country if we expanded that far. So I really do see incredible value in that. So as I said, we're actively looking for additional funding to help us with the costs.
Okay, great.
Yep, and Jess, well, you can certainly count on the city. We're going to be there supporting and paying for a portion of this testing moving forward. We think it's invaluable, and there's more that can be done. We didn't really get into it in detail here, but you do have the ability, depending on where you're pulling the test from, to potentially isolate, specific regions of the city, the Capitol complex, apartment complexes. You could really do that, and we've talked in the past about how certain colleges have done that as a means of keeping it safe for their inhabitants. And I know the police department is interested, and I think the county as well in the potential opioid measuring and monitoring, which is something that the partnership with Biobot, I think, could last even beyond COVID. And we certainly hope we're gonna move beyond COVID in the new year. But it's here to stay. It's great technology. I appreciate everybody coming and sharing their thoughts. Jeff, did you have a final word you wanted to convey to the public?
I just wanted to remind people around Christmas time about the Christmas trees.
Okay.
We'll pick them up from January 2nd through the 31st, and just like the leaf bags, we want them out front.
Yep, absolutely. Appreciate that.
And actually, on that note, you reminded me, December, with Christmas, the leaf collection is until it's December 1st or the first major snowfall, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
As the need arises.
Okay, well, thanks again, everybody, for watching. A great show. We'll be back again next week to continue the conversation with other important topics. Until then, I'm Mayor Eric Pappenfuss. Thank you for watching Community Conversations. Stay safe and be well, everyone.